You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio. You're listening.
Okay. Number 4. All right. Hey, oops. Hey, I think we're live now. Here we go. I'm flying solo, clearly, without my Sheena. And what we're making do here in the studio tonight at LA Talk Radio with Shameless Feminine Speaks, the only show here for all you shamelessly shameless women, men, ladies, and misfits ready for the feminine re-evolution. Yeah, that's what we're all about here, shamelessly shameless, which means without shame and without blame. And we are inclusive of all the ladies and all the men and all y'all in between, because this is all about us rising together. The future is not just feminine, it's us standing hand in hand together, right? And so I'm your host, Rebecca Haywood, and Sheena, my usual shameless Sheena co-host, is off in Texas doing a psychic conference, so good for her. But I'm really excited to be here with you guys tonight, especially with tonight's topic, sacred sensuality. Yes, one of my favorite topics. And first of all, I just want you to know how much I love you all, because right now LA is on fire. I'm actually evacuated from my home and drove through fire to get through to y'all. Well, that might be a slight exaggeration, but it was quite the journey to get here, up through Laurel Canyon and all over the place. But I made it in the nick of time. So I am here with you all, although, a little revved up from all this excitement going on here in the city. So it's actually a perfect topic for us today, because, that sacred sensuality, we're continuing that conversation, that we started last week and actually really the week before in our show, Loyalty Begins With You. And if you missed that show, what we really, what I walked you through, I was actually alone in that show as well. I walked you through each aspect of your body, right? And renewing a vow of loyalty to that aspect of your being. Sorry, not your body, of your being. So we went through your body, your emotional body, your heart, and your mind, right? And then, of course, spirit. And then last week, we took that and we really kind of dove into the skin that we're in. I really wanted to focus on the body, because there's so much that we shame about our bodies, which isn't exactly loyal, right? That isn't exactly presenting that self-loyalty. And, so we spoke a lot about self-image. We were really skin deep last week. And though we're still very much at that layer of the skin, we're going to be dropping it down today with the sacred sensuality. Because although it is often kind of misconstrued, sensuality, as having to do with sex, that it's a sexual thing, it really isn't. Though it can feel just as good, and it can be as much or even more of a communion than we achieve sexually, right? That sensuality, to me, really is that foundation. It is, to me, my definition is a biological experience of the divine. Yeah, just take that in. A biological experience of the divine. This body was really made for pleasure, right? It was really made for pleasure. Just think about all the sensations of your body, right? And it's really geared to receive that pleasure from life, right? And when you're really, truly tuned in to the skin you're in, and not just tuned into the surface layer in terms of what you see in the mirror, but you are tuned in to the skin you're in and dropped in, inhabiting this body, inhabiting this skin, you are 100% embodied, then guess what? Life comes awake inside of you. It becomes so pleasurable. The simple wind, on your skin, the scent of a rose in the air, or the fire. It might be the case if you're here in LA. It does smell good in its own way. Life to me is that way of really receiving all the beauty through all of my senses. Okay. And, the taste of an impeccable meal, right? How often do you actually really partake in your meal versus another thing to check off the list? Lunch, done. There's so much more that we can experience of life, from life, and of ourselves in this body. We've spoken a little bit about pleasure, sort of more couched in the sexual pleasure aspect of how, especially as women, through the course of time, that pleasure, that sexual pleasure has really been shamed in us. But the truth is, it's not just sexual pleasure, it's pleasure itself. Just happiness, right? We're waiting for the piano to fall on our head. We're knocking on wood, right? There's a part of us that feels a little bit guilty in that joy, in that pleasure, that we feel the need to balance it, right, with the suffering, or to somehow earn it, right? And only then will I allow myself that moment of truly enjoying my lunch, right? But, to really feed that aspect of your body is going to actually enrich your body with so much more health, okay? This isn't just about experiencing pleasure, but it's about being in that communion with yourself, being in communion with your body. And when you're in that communion with your body and with your communion with life, then you're really tuning in to the messages that it's delivering, right? That your body is delivering to you, that life is delivering to you, that other people, the people that you love or that you don't love so much, are delivering to you. We are in constant communication with life, okay? And so today is really about tapping in to that sensuality inside of you and opening all of those channels of your senses and experiencing them directly. Okay, now this is a big point, experiencing them directly. Okay, so part of that meditation that I guided you all through a couple weeks ago in Loyalty Begins With You, you may have noticed, okay, when we got to the mind, okay, loyalty to the mind, I actually added my own vow in there for you guys. And you may have kind of I'm sure you took it in, but I wonder where that took you, because what that vow was that the mind vows to be in service to the body, to the emotions, to the heart, to the voice, to spirit, that it would take the crown of its hierarchy and bow down in grace to every aspect of you, be in service to. Okay. And this is really an important aspect of tuning in to the skin that we're in and tuning in to sensuality as a direct experience of life. Okay. Because really what so often we're doing is filtering our experience of life through the mind, right? There's that constant commentary, right? We see a beautiful full moon, instead of just simply enjoying and experiencing that full moon, we say to ourselves, oh, look at the beautiful full moon, right? Which seems like a really small thing. And yet, what is the need for that commentary, right? This isn't a sports game, right? Your life is not a sports game. You don't need that constant commentator there telling you the play-by-play action. And even a good sports game, right? I know for me, I'm a hockey girl. Go Bruins. I know we're doing well tonight. Yahoo. So, or at least last time I looked. So, I know I prefer to just watch the game directly, So I don't need that commentator in order to enjoy the sports game. I don't need that commentator in order to enjoy my life. And in fact, in my experience, when I was able to really remove that commentator, be able to put that commentator on mute, that direct experience really opened up for me. And I realized, wow, there was so much of life that I was missing out on. There was so much more to life. There was so much life filling me up in every moment. So much pleasure coming through in every moment. And so many messages coming through. And by really tuning in to that sensuality of my body and tuning in underneath the skin, to everything that was happening underneath that skin, that, wow, when I tuned into that pleasure, guess what? The moment something was no longer pleasurable, it really became a true guide, right? Because it wasn't coming from the mind. It wasn't a story that I was reacting to in the mind, okay? It was a direct experience of life or of my body, right? And that feeling of something like, ooh, something's not quite off, not quite right? This doesn't quite feel good, right? So this is this tool of really tuning into the sensuality and starting to allow pleasure to be your guide. Okay, it will navigate you. Okay, your body is truly one of your greatest pools of wisdom. And, it won't lie to you if you only allow it to directly experience life around you and to directly communicate with you, okay, within you, right? So, we all have this commentator, and, it's quite a journey to really get to a place where you can shift that off entirely, right? But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. And tonight I want to give you some tools on how to get there, okay? And so first, of course, and as always, I love to share personal stories. And so tonight I want to share with you guys that story, that moment that I really made that shift. And it was in Teotihuacan, Mexico. And I had already been doing a lot of work on the mind, really focusing on the mind. And in terms of not believing the stories, kind of discrediting the mind and all of its lies that it was telling me. So I already had quite the self-awareness, and yet it would still talk, just even out of habit. It would still just talk. And I was sitting there and just so mindful and so aware of this kind of meaningless voice in my mind. And I really, truly, with all of my might, set my intention and made an act of power to remove that force from my being. I could see it like there's really no better way to describe it than the way that one of my teachers describes it, as a parasite. And I could see this being, like this parasite. And it wasn't actually in my mind. This parasite was on my back, on the back of my heart. And it was just sucking my life force. I could just feel this energy, this thing, and hear its voice. And I just sat there and tuned into it. And with all of my might, with all of my intention, I wrestled with that in my mind. I wrestled with it and pulled it from my being, okay? With a huge, huge exhale, sitting there at the steps of some pyramid. Actually, it was in the place of mind, the place of air, which represents the place of mind. And I pulled this parasite from my being, and I felt it shift. I felt the shift. And all of a sudden, I kind of started walking through this place of air, through this sacred ground. And I was just walking, and feeling that freedom. It was a freedom that I had never experienced before. No mind. no story, no voice. And I started to feel, I was feeling so much, and I started to feel in my feet this fire. Okay, this fire. Like my feet were on fire, like they were burning. And I was like actually looking down at my feet because it was that intense. And without words, asked the question, like, what are you? Like, what is this? And looked up, and my gaze landed on this cactus across the way. And I knew in that moment, again, without words, that that's what I was experiencing. I was experiencing that cactus. I was experiencing the life force of that cactus, of every cactus there in that desert, of all of life around me. I was experiencing the very sun. And that may sound like really out there. Even the whole process may sound out there. But it's absolutely true and achievable. And as I continued to walk in this way, very mindless and directly experiencing everything that I put my attention on, I experienced directly, whether it was a person or a flower. I remember getting back to the hotel, and they had this beautiful rose garden. And I just sat there in front of one of those roses for I don't know how long. I was just directly experiencing and just breathing in that rose and exchanging myself with that rose, just life force to life force. It was so, so beautiful and so exquisite. I've never felt so full in my life, almost as if I would never have to eat again. And yet, thankfully, I did choose to eat. Because I say thankfully, because, oh my goodness, how delicious that food was. It was the most exquisite experience of, I believe it was chocolate profiteroles that they serve. Chocolate pastries with ice cream. Oh my gosh. I was feeding my body as if it were my lover. It was so, so beautiful. And just with one little taste of this food, feeling so enriched by it, feeling so nourished by it, feeling so full, So, this story may sound like, and I suppose it is. I haven't lived an ordinary life, but neither do you. Life is not ordinary. It is not the ordinary that our mind paints upon it, right? Though we're comfortable in the familiar, we're comfortable in what we know. Let go of knowing. Let go of that need to know. Let go of the commentary, even for a moment, and start to catch those glimpses in the spaces between the words, in the spaces between the known, and start to experience the unfamiliar of life that actually you've gazed upon again and again and again, but never actually experienced directly, because you weren't here inhabiting this body 100%, right? And so, let's talk about that, inhabiting this body, okay? So we've talked a little bit about the mind coming in service, surrendering its voice, letting its voice fall silent, okay? And again, I don't fault the mind. I love the mind. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. I love the mind. And so certainly we're going to cover that show. We're going to cover that aspect of our loyalty to the mind itself. But for today's show and for now, with your body and with your emotions, let your mind be in surrender to this process, okay? Without faulting the mind, simply ask it to be in surrender, to bow down in grace, okay? Because there is a lot of inhabiting that we all need to do of this body. Mm-hmm. And even the mind will be served by it, okay? So let's talk about inhabiting this body, all right? Inhabiting this body, wow. There are varying degrees that we, as sisters, as brothers, as humans, inhabit our body. And yet many of us walk through life quite disconnected. You know, even us yogis, right? We might go to yoga class and find our connection, and then where does it go? The moment we leave class and we get on the highway and we start driving, you know, or we start tackling our to-do list. Where does our attention go? Where is our awareness? Where is that body, mind, spirit connection? So we're so very quick to leave our bodies to varying degrees, okay? So, you know, some are completely disembodied. You know, of course, there's a shred of them, a thread of them here, right? Or they wouldn't be animated. They wouldn't be walking around, breathing, talking. But you can be so minimally inhabiting your body and still be functioning. And I want you to just really honestly take a look as I start describing this to you, okay, the varying degrees, okay? So to the nth degree, another story for you all. And this story actually comes from my grandmother and teacher, Madre Sarita. And, you know, it was actually a story that she told me in teaching me a healing technique, which at the time I really dismissed because I thought, well, you know, this sounds a little out there. I said, this sounds a little out there. But I listened, as I always did. I always listened to her. She tells me this story. She said, you know, mija, sometimes mothers will bring their little babies to us, little babies who are crying, and they just won't stop crying. And often they've been diagnosed with colic, and that's what they think it is. She said, no, but mija, it isn't always. Sometimes it is, but very often what it is that the soul never quite completely came in with the child. And what we have to do is take that child to the edge of the ocean and call for that child's soul to come home. You know, so beautiful. So beautiful. Just call for that child's soul to come home. So you can imagine why I was kind of like, I doubt I'll come across that too much. I don't know about this. This sounds kind of like superstition. And how is just bringing this child to the edge of the ocean really going to do anything? And calling the soul back home, really? And yet, it wasn't until later that I really... it was both in my own journey of healing from sexual trauma and also as I was helping others heal from their traumas, that I really started to notice this disembodiment that was happening. And, you know, though I could guide myself to a place of, you know, grounding, right? Like most of us, I think, know how to do a grounding meditation, like use our breath, find our womb, find our root connection to the earth and breathe, right? Breathe into our body and become grounded and find that connection. And yet, you know, I was finding that it was like a partial connection within myself. I was finding it as a partial connection in others. I even had a dear sweet brother just in the last year reach out who actually had surgery. He had gone under anesthesia. And he himself and his wife and his close friends were just like, there's a part of you that just like isn't quite here. There's something happening. And so he came to me and I told him this very simple story with Sarita and told him kind of the process that I was doing with clients now, actually bringing them to the ocean. Or if they couldn't come here to me in California to do this ritual of calling their soul home, I would invite them to, you know, do it long distance with me with just a bowl of water at home. And, you know, he did this process for himself and wow, did he return. Wow, did he return. Wow, has every client that I've invited to do this, how they have returned. And of course, even after that return, okay, and I can't tell you exactly why it's water. Water is an amazing conduit. And yet, that's all I can tell you. It's an amazing conduit, and somehow it works, okay? this is the beauty of magic. We don't always know what's behind the smoke and mirrors, but as long as it works, do we really need to, right? And yet, even with this aspect of calling one's soul home and recognizing, in the mainstream, or less than mainstream, but mainstream New Age, we'll call it, they have a name for it as soul retrieval, right? Soul retrieval work. So that's really beautiful work to help you really get back in to the skin you're in and drop down beneath the surface and find this sensuality that I'm speaking about, that biological experience of the divine. Mm-hmm. And yet, there's more to it. There's still that habit of the mind, right? There's still that habit of the mind that pulls us out, that habit to put our attention outside of the body, to minimize this experience of the body. And so, even for myself, after doing this deep soul retrieval work and with other clients, there had to be a practice in there. There had to be a practice in there. So the practice that I'm going to give to you all tonight is really what I have my clients work with, and it's something that I just kind of developed for myself, kind of came organically. So I wouldn't even say I developed it for myself. Spirit downloaded it and said, here you go. Okay, so it's a meditation. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to just get comfortable. And again, it really doesn't matter the position that you're in. You can be sitting, laying down, just be comfortable, okay? And so we're just going to drop into our breath. And just take 3 deep, deep breaths. And with each breath, just allowing them to become deeper and even slower. Deeper into this body. Allowing that breath to reach on the inhale up through the mind, up above the mind, to the soul mind. And then on the exhale, bringing that down, that energy down through the center of your body, all the way down, filling your belly. And then on the next inhale, reaching down through your belly and down through your womb to the earth. And breathing that earth energy in, up through your body now. Just keep with this breath. Keep breathing, pulling from above the mind, down into the body, and pulling from the earth up into your body. And it's okay if your mind is still distracting you. It's okay. We'll get there. Okay. We're going to use that mind's attention right here, right now. Okay, we're going to use that mind's attention, and we're going to start to put that attention deep into the body. And I want you to put it into one of your senses. Let's start with the sense of sound. And just put all of your attention there into sound, every sound that you're hearing. And start to use your breath there in that channel of attention of sound. Start to feel that exchange. Maybe you can hear crickets where you are, or birds, or even sirens. Let go of the story of what you're hearing. Let go of even identifying the sound. We need not know what it is. We can thank the mind for its input and let it know that it's not needed. See how much you can experience those sounds directly, breathing them in and out through that channel, through that sense of hearing. And now let's cycle to another sense that is greatly challenged by the mind, sight. So open your eyes, but what I invite you to do is keep your gaze soft. Just keep your gaze soft. And just start looking around you wherever you are in your meditation. Just start looking around with a very soft gaze, again, letting the mind know that its input is not needed. Start to perceive everything that you're seeing simply as light. And you'll find here, the more you let go of the mind, the more you let go of needing to identify the form, the more you start to see the light that makes up that form. You may even start to see the light in between the form, in between you and whatever it is you're gazing at. You may start to notice just how full the air is of light and how much in movement that light is. And now let's cycle through to another sense of touch. So close your eyes. And now direct your attention into your hands. And I just want you to just start feeling, rubbing your hands together, palm to palm, or caressing the top of your hand and each finger. Maybe running that hand up your arm. Just put all of your attention there, and again, we thank the mind for its input, but we let it know that it's not necessary. To experience directly through your skin this sense of touch. And in this moment, both touching and being touched. Feel the pleasure in the hand that is caressing and the pleasure in the hand that is being caressed. It's hard to differentiate the two, isn't it? And this is the truth. When we open ourselves in complete receptivity to life, and we surrender our senses in service, the giving and the receiving become seamless, just as pleasurable as the other. And we gauge what we're giving by how good it feels. And we gauge what we want to receive also by the pleasure. Keep your attention there. Keep caressing yourself. And just feel all the nerves in your body reacting, receiving. See how pleasurable you can make it, or rather how pleasurable you can allow it to be. And now I invite you to again shift your attention back to the sense of hearing. Shift your attention back to the sounds around you, and now bring that same awareness of pleasure, of receiving pleasure. Bring that awareness in and feel the pleasure of the sounds as they enter you, as they reverberate in your ear, and as the energy moves through your body, all the synapses firing, feel that pleasure. Song of life. And now open your eyes and return your attention to the sense of sight. Again, allowing the pleasure, allowing the awareness that indeed you are receiving through that gift of sight. It is far more than mere perception. It is reception. All that light traveling through the air, into your eyes, and through your body, filling you up. Eat the light. And then if you choose, you can continue this practice, giving the light through your eyes, sending that light out back through your gaze to everything you see. And now, keeping your attention in all of those senses, I want you to just start making a sound. You can if you choose, or any sound. start singing a song, or even just speaking your own name. Let that sound come from you in the same way in which you were caressing yourself, in which you were sending the light out through your eyes. Let that sound come from you. Feel the pleasure of the sound reverberating in your voice, in your throat. Feel the pleasure of it bubbling up from your heart, that Om. Much like the sense of touch, when we speak with this connection of sensuality, it is both a giving and a receiving, and we gauge what we give by how it feels in our body. We gauge how it is being received by how it feels coming out of our body. It brings a whole nother awareness to how we're using our word. Even just how we're breathing, even without sound, just that breath is touching the inside of your lungs and is breathing in the light that you saw that fills the air, is breathing in the sounds, and is breathing out all that pleasure, that love that you are. That biological experience of the divine. And the only sense we haven't dove into today is the sense of taste, which I'll let you do on your own. Any food, it doesn't matter, it's going to be so delicious. Make this practice for yourself with each of the senses, and make this practice for yourself when you're eating your food. Put all of your attention into the experience, into tasting that food, into smelling that food, right? Smell is another one of the senses. Again, breathing that in. The beauty of life. Literally, the senses are here to inform us, yes. And yet it is so much more. In that receptivity, what we receive through that information is so much more. And our pleasure becomes that guide. The food that you taste. If it's not good for your body, guess what? It's not actually going to taste good. If you don't believe me, try it. It won't actually taste good if you are putting your attention there. So smell and taste are two that we haven't gone into. Another one that we haven't gone into here tonight, and that we won't for this show, that I call one of our senses, is emotions. It's another one of our senses that allows us to perceive the world around us and the world within us. And in one of our emotion shows, I actually had you guys cycling through, making a practice of cycling through all the emotions and taking the label off of them and just experiencing them as energy in motion. Motion, energy in motion. And that, if you've done that practice, then you also will start to experience emotion like I do as one of your senses. That channel will have become cleaned of the stories, where it can become a channel of direct experience around you. So make this a practice for yourself. Do it again and again in a sit-down meditation. And also bring it with you out in life when you have that moment, when you're sitting in traffic at the light. Take a moment to let go of the mind and listen to the sounds of traffic as the song of life. Notice how that shifts your day entirely, right? We let go of the story and perceive directly. That naturally life is pleasurable. In most cases, life is pleasurable. And if it isn't naturally pleasurable, it's because it's not good for you. For you. It might be good for him or her, but not you. And so tuning into this, tuning into your sacred sensuality is going to help you not just reconnect to this body and to this earth and to the people around you. It is going to navigate your life in a new way. Okay. It's going to allow, we spoke about last week with self-image, to develop new eyes. That you could gaze upon that body with new eyes. Well, this sensuality is part of those new eyes. That you may start to let your choices in life come from the inside, come from the within. This is body wisdom. Body wisdom. Try it on. I guarantee you it is much smarter than your mind has allowed it to be. So just tell your mind to go on a vacation this week. A partial vow of silence for the mind. Only when necessary may it speak. And otherwise, make a practice of directly experiencing everything that you're engaging in, from your food to doing the dishes. Yes, even doing the dishes can be such a pleasurable experience that fills you up, that rejuvenates you rather than draining you as yet another chore to cross off your list. Let your life be guided by pleasure. And really, we can only land in that place of truly allowing ourselves, or trusting that the pleasure that we're following is of true pleasure, when we restore this connection with our body of sacred sensuality. Biological experience of the divine, a biological experience of you, the divine, of your lover, the divine, of your friend, your sister, your brothers, of life, the divine. When we clean this channel up and we renew this loyalty to our body, then truly pleasure can be your guide. It won't lead you to take that extra drink. No, it'll lead you not to. It will lead you to speak your truth because it feels so good coming out of you, and anything else feels something isn't sitting right. It doesn't quite taste good. So honor this body and every channel that it has been given of its senses. Every single one, and practice cycling through them. Grow each of those channels. Open them completely and develop a new relationship with each of your senses that is a direct experience versus through the commentator of the mind. It may take some time, but you'll get there. You'll get there. Little by little. And in the meantime, time, just that practice of receiving life, allowing yourself to receive life through those senses is enough. Even if your mind is speaking, it's okay. You're still receiving. That's what's so beautiful about this body. It does it with or without you, with or without your awareness. It is already receiving life. Like I said, made for pleasure. And those senses as part of its guiding force to navigate you through the world. And as you practice more and more, yes, that pleasure will become a true guide. And more you will have that faith, that renewed faith in your body and its wisdom. So be loyal to this body, my friends. Be its best friend. Return your sight to it. Bend your ear to it. Open your heart, your breath. Come closer to it. And fully inhabit this body, your temple, this sacred space of you. And I will see you here next week. I want to hear from you, so please reach out. You can private message me on social media. You can find me pretty much everywhere as at Shaman Sister. Or email me at ispeak@RebeccaHaywood.com. And I'm always available for private sessions. But really, I love hearing from you guys regarding each of these shows, because it lets me know how well did I message myself? How was this message received? Where did it take you? You know, where do we need to linger a little longer? What do we need to clarify? Or where do we need to bring you next? Okay. So please engage with us there in Facebook. The Facebook group is Shameless Feminine Speaks, of course. Join us there. Or private message me if you're shy. No problem. Okay? So I love you all so much. Enjoy your body. Enjoy the gift of it. And just find out just how much it was made for pleasure. I guarantee you, your life will become so full. Blessings to you all. Until next week.
You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.